Hi, everybody. Thanks for your patience today. We exited executive session and we discussed a human resource matter in executive session. We've already pledged to the flag and we're going to move right into resolutions. So the first resolution is resolution approving meeting minutes from 7/7/26 and 7/7/21. Be it resolved to accept minutes for meetings held on July 7th, 2026 and July 21st, 2026. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution accepting the clerk's report. Be it resolved to accept the town clerk's report.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution authorizing payment of vouchers. Be it resolved to authorize payment of vouchers in the amount of $480,081.97.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A resolution authorizing the town to auction vehicles, which is in the form of attachment A. Was that anything to go with you?
Oh, yeah, I didn't see much, but that's okay, I think it did, we told us first Tuesday, I would just.
Just need some time in this three.
Okay, I don't think that's right.
So, the attachment A was attachment A, emailed to the board. There were a number of vehicles, I think we had 2 vehicles from highway and we had, 2 vehicles from the town. We can table this or we can go forward with, essentially what we wanna do is take some of the older vehicles. That one, in the case of one, it's just not working, and start to cycle that out, and we have our highway superintendent here, talk a little bit more about that later. So I'm fine tabling this or moving forward with it.
If Cody can perhaps discuss it a little bit,
Yeah.
I'm okay with trusting, I didn't see attachment A.
Yeah, so
All going to move.
yeah, so I'll talk about the 2 cars and then Cody, if you don't mind, talk about the last ones. So the 2 town cars, non-highway that we want to cycle out. One is a former police car. It is in terrible shape. It leaks water. That water freezes in the winter time, right where your foot kind of is near the pedal. And it's very unsafe. The frame is not where it belongs. So that's one of them that we want to auction off. Whatever money comes in, we want to put into a car fund so that we can start to build that out. The other one is a Nissan Leaf that has thousands upon thousands of dollars of damage to it. And we would like to move away from that slowly and move towards something more reliable so that it doesn't take 10 hours to charge the car. I think it was like the very first version of a discontinued car. And it takes about 10 hours to slow charge it. It may spark now and again. And so it's been deemed as an unsafe vehicle, unless we spend thousands to fix it. So we're looking at different options and working with the chief of police to cycle in, to purchase a new police car. And then to get, one of the older ones, in good shape over for, the building department, our code enforcer, or our assessor, etc. So those 2 are the town cars, and then Cody, you have some highway ones.
Yeah, the 2 are a Chevy pickup truck, I believe it's a 2010. The frame is rotted on it, the truck is used as like a fuel delivery truck for our equipment when we're out on job sites. It's also a plow truck for like the highway department that we use optionally. But the frame, according to our mechanics, is in ill repair, so that's one, and the other is a 1986 dinosaur mountain truck, 4-wheel drive that it's time to replace. We've had just one problem after another with it, after it served its time. And those are both the auction.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so is the board okay with, is there a second for this resolution? Please. Resolution authorizing the town to auction vehicles. Whereas the town has determined that the vehicles listed in the attached inventory will cycle back to get that on the website are no longer needed for municipal purposes and have been declared surplus property. And whereas the town board finds it to be in the best interest of the town to dispose of such surplus vehicles through a public auction process, now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby authorizes the sale of the vehicles identified in the attached inventory through a public auction or other lawful auction platform. Be it further resolved that the town supervisor and any other appropriate town officials are authorized to take all actions necessary to complete the auction and transfer of ownership of the vehicles and be it further resolved that the proceeds from the sale of such vehicles shall be deposited into the appropriate town accounts in accordance with applicable law and town policy.
Second.
All in favor? The next resolution is resolution granting a 211 waiver. So. A 211 waiver is something that when an employee retires and is inside of the retirement system. They are capped at a certain dollar amount per year, so they can still continue to work. But somewhere around, I believe it's a 30,000, I don't want to be quoted, even though this is on the record, up on that number, when they can't exceed that. And so this waiver, currently our police department is short, I believe, one full-time officer. And this waiver allows a part-time officer to fill in more spots that will put him over that retirement cap. And we're limiting that, well, that could be open for a period of 2 years. We're limiting that to 5 months and or until a full-time police officer is hired. At the same time, the town board a couple of months ago authorized a police officer who's currently part-time to proceed with his medical exam, and he received a waiver from both the town and the state to where we're gonna disregard the age limit so that Colby could actually go for his test and hopefully become that full-time officer. So that's what I'm going to read here. Be it resolved that the town board hereby authorizes the town supervisor to execute and submit all documents necessary to obtain a section 211 waiver for Officer Sinatra for temporary employment from through January 18th to 2027, or until a full-time police officer is hired, whichever occurs first.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Yeah.
This is just to reiterate, this is a 5 months temporary employment through January 18th.
Yeah.
Or until a full-time police officer is hired,
Whichever occurs first. Okay. The next resolution is resolution relocating designated accessible public space on Mulhall Road. So, we've come to find out this year that there is an accessible, a handicap parking spot in front of somebody's driveway. And the town put it there. And so we're going to correct that mistake that was done some years ago. And that's what this resolution will do. And the highway superintendent and myself went out there and we looked at it, and yes, it's right there. And we're just gonna move it over a little bit into its proper spot. And we do have the permission in writing from the DOT. Whereas the town board previously said, whereas the location of a designated accessible parking space on 70 Mill Hill Road has been found to interfere with access to a private driveway. And whereas the town board has determined that relocating the parking space is necessary to ensure safe and unobstructed access to the property. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby authorizes the relocation of the designated accessible parking space on Mill Hill Road to a location determined by the town supervisor and town highway superintendent, and directs that any necessary signage and pavement markings be installed accordingly.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The next resolution is establishing a Woodstock Bearwise Committee. So just a little recap, in 2023, the town of Woodstock created a bear task force. And the work has been pretty significant. The task force was put in place to educate the public and to reduce the number of human bear conflicts. And since that time, the number of bears that have been euthanized because of those conflicts has significantly decreased. Unfortunately, we have had, the task force went on a little hiatus in 2025 for about 5 or 6 months. And in that time, unfortunately, 2 bears were euthanized. So what this resolution is going to do is take the task force and turn it into a committee. So task forces are there for a very specific purpose for a short period of time. And this committee will be a longer effort for the town to come up with ways to help us not kill bears and to have people be safe, have safe interactions with those bears, and for bears to remain wild. Whereas the town board previously established the Woodstock Bear Task Force to address matters relating to human bear interactions and bear management within the town. And whereas the town board has determined that the work of the task force should continue on an ongoing basis as a standing advisory committee. Now therefore be it resolved that the Woodstock Bear Task Force is hereby redesignated as the Woodstock Bear Wise Committee. And be it further resolved that the committee shall consist of up to 5 members appointed by the town board. And be it further resolved that members shall serve 1-year terms commencing on January 1st and ending on December 31st of each year or until their successors are appointed. Be it further resolved that committee members may be reappointed to successive terms upon approval of the town board. And be it further resolved that the committee shall continue to advise the town board on bear awareness, public education, conflict mitigation, and related matters as directed by the town board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And this next resolution is taking the 4 current members of the task force, putting them and us, in my case, I am on that task force and up in. And then we are seeking actively a 5th member, so if anybody is interested in volunteering and finding out more about what that entails, just please call my office or email me. Be it resolved that the town board hereby appoints the following individuals to serve as members of the Woodstock Bear Wise Committee. Effective immediately and continuing through December 31st, 2026. Enola Portis, Rachel Jackson, John Milo, Hannah Berenz. Be it further resolved that said appointments shall continue through December 31st, 2026, and the appointed members shall be eligible for reappointment to additional terms upon further action of the town board. One question, did we have another member on the task force whose name's not here? We'll double check that and make any modifications at the next town board meeting. Is there a second for this?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Resolution authorizing transfer from highway equipment reserve fund for purchase of 2 Freightliner trucks. So this is one for our superintendent Cody. And Cody, I'll read this. If there's a second, then maybe you could explain to us before the board votes what's going on. Sorry, see, aren't you glad you showed up today? Whereas the town board has determined that it is necessary to purchase 2 Freightliner trucks pursuant to the attached contract. Whereas funds are available in the Highway Equipment Reserve Fund number 0.002 for this purpose. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby authorizes the transfer of up to $354,158 from the Highway Equipment Reserve Fund .002 to Highway Truck Capital .099 in the 2026 budget to fund the purchase of 2 Freightliner trucks pursuant to the contract. And be it further resolved that this transfer from the Highway Equipment Reserve Fund is subject to a permissive referendum pursuant to Article 7 of the New York State Town Law. And be it further resolved that the town clerk is directed to publish the following notice in the town's official newspaper. Notice of adoption of resolution subject to permissive referendum. Notice is hereby given that on August 18th, 2026, the Woodstock Town Board adopted resolution number, that will be filled in, authorizing the transfer of up to $354,158 from the Highway Equipment Reserve Fund .002 to fund the purchase of 2 Freightliner trucks. Said resolution is subject to permissive referendum pursuant to the provisions of Article 7 of the New York State Town Law by order of the Woodstock Town Board. Is there a second? Second. And Cody, did you, before we vote, talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, these trucks were ordered in 2020 originally as originally Western Stars, and we were put on a list and waiting for a couple of years before being told they were no longer making these trucks anymore. At that time, we were put on a list for Freightliner, so it's the only one that we could get on for a 4-wheel drive truck. As you guys know, in the wintertime, getting up these mountains can be quite treacherous, and a 4-wheel drive truck is necessary. So that's why we're buying these trucks. It's gonna replace one of the trucks that we're auctioning off that I brought up earlier, and another truck that we have will become the backup truck. It was earmarked, I think, probably 2 years ago. The money was put into the reserve, so that money is available. I know we need the permissive referendum to move it to the mountain truck capital. I do have something that I'd like to say about that. With the amount of monies we're being spent, if I have a minute, but I know you gotta vote. Do you want me to talk at all? I have a plan for the future. I know it sounds like we're spending a lot of money right now and the way that the money's coming out of the account. I'm looking into the future, the 10 to the 20 year mark of our fleet for the highway
Say
department.
that, you get a whole presentation.
Oh,
Get
ready.
I'll be ready. All in favor? Aye. Resolution appointing zoning enforcement officer. Be it resolved that the town board hereby appoints Donna Malloy to the position of provisional zoning enforcement officer at an hourly rate of $35.51 effective August 19th, 2026.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to hire a police dispatcher. Be it resolved that the town board hereby appoints Sarah Malone to the position of police dispatcher effective August 19th, 2026 at a rate of $26.45 per hour.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to hire another police dispatcher. Be it resolved that the town board hereby appoints Nicholas Secreto to the position of police dispatcher effective August 24th, 2026 at a rate of $26.45 per hour.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution to purchase an emergency alert system. And I will ask Councilperson Lori Osmond to say something after I read this, and if there's a second. Be it resolved that the town board hereby authorizes the purchase of Rave Alert emergency notification system services from Motorola Solutions in the amount of $5,700, then annually $4,500 for 4 years thereafter. Good. Okay, and Councilperson.
Yeah,
let's
sure,
see.
so, I think that I mentioned before the table that I've been doing a little bit of research on this, and last summer, Lily and I went to meet with Joyce Grant and Shandaken, who Shandaken now uses this alert, but Joyce had done the research and found this company. And we got a little bit of a demo, and we were told of its capabilities. Since then, I believe all of this about this system as well. Not only is it cost effective and less expensive than some of the other options that I explored, but it has capabilities like this. This is it can be bilingual. It can also do a survey function. So instead of trying to figure out like Survey Monkey, if we want to put something out to the town, we can do it this way. It's an opt-in. So you there'll be a link on the website, and we can advertise this as well. You click, you sign up, and you decide how you want to be notified in the event of an emergency. And it's not just a weather alert, it could be anything, it could be a road closure, it could be trees down, it could even be, hey, there's a town hall meeting. And you can go via cell phone, landline, there'll be voicemails, you can record custom voicemails, so it's not just a robo thing. You can send text messages and
Emails too?
emails as well. So
does it link to difference to Facebook also?
yeah, and it links to social media, Facebook, and I think it has Instagram capability. I know we don't have an Instagram yet, but. And so it seems to be pretty complete, and it's also been vetted by our surrounding towns. And I just want to add that we are pretty much the only town that doesn't have an emergency alert system. We think that it.
And it's also the cheapest option, so it's too.
Yeah, and I just have to say, I did get them to waive $2,500 start fee.
Thank you. Very much for all your hard work.
Yeah, and I say something, I so much appreciate Lori coming on, because I see Lori as a catalyst. I know you said you and Lily went, but I see Lori as the person that this was your thing, you came on and said, we're gonna move the technology forward. You had investigated, you sent the town board some choices. I know, you set up an education session, but I went to a demo, and I'm certainly all in, and I'm happy to help any way that I can. I think it's wonderful, and everything that you said. There's so many reasons to go for this.
Oh, and I don't thank you very much. And I also wanted to add that it will allow for multiple administrators. So highway, and you can be an administrator, superintendent can be an administrator. So it seems like it has the best of a lot of different systems.
Well, all in favor?
I
Yeah.
All right, resolution accepting resignation from building department. Be it resolved that the town board hereby accepts the resignation of Francis Hoffman effective August 18th, 2026. And be it further resolved that the town board expresses its sincere appreciation and thanks to Mr. Woodland for service to the town and wishes him well in his future endeavors.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye, and I also want to say, I know we just said it here, but I appreciate, Butch has been here for many years. And there's so many things he did that were helpful and I just want to add on things.
Okay, resolution accepting resignation from dispatch, and this is something that, starting, earlier in the year, we were kind of looking at all the positions that were filled on paper but not in person. And this one somehow slipped through the cracks. Be it resolved to accept the resignation of Patrick Rose as dispatcher effective June 19th, 2026. And be it further resolved to thank Patrick for his service to the town of Woodstock.
Second.
All in favor? And this one I'm very happy to read, resolution extending Brianna Schmidt's appointment through September 30th, 2026. Whereas Brianna Schmidt is currently serving in her appointed role and has provided valuable service and support to the organization. And whereas additional time is needed to ensure continuity of operations and completion of ongoing responsibilities. Now therefore be it resolved that Brianna Schmidt's current appointment previously scheduled to expire on July 24th, 2026 is hereby extended through September 30th, 2026. And be it further resolved that all other terms and conditions of her appointment shall remain unchanged unless otherwise amended by subsequent actions.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then we've got two resolutions that didn't make the agenda, both came in very late, and I'm gonna start with resolution to hire an employee that the town board just interviewed. Resolved that Alan Harmon is hereby hired as municipal code enforcer at the hourly rate of $30.16 per hour effective August 21st, 2026 on a part-time basis, working up to 40 hours per pay period. Be it further resolved that the appropriate, I'm just gonna change that to the appropriate personnel in town are authorized and directed to take any and all actions necessary to implement this hiring and employment arrangement. So we'll fill out that civil service paperwork and get everything rolling. And this last just two second reading, but all in favor?
Aye.
Right, and the final resolution here is supporting, this came to late today, and there's a deadline of tomorrow, so I'm gonna go ahead and read this, and I think it explains it rather well. Supporting stream buffer, resolution supporting stream buffer restoration and trees for trips partnership. Whereas mapping the Sawkill watershed project and its partners, the Woodstock Land Conservancy, Town of Woodstock Drinking Water Source Protection Plan, BWSP2 Committee, and the Woodstock Artists Association and Museum WAM are organizing a stream buffer workshop on October 3rd, 2026. And whereas the workshop will be held in partnership with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation's Trees for Trips program, which will provide approximately 60 native trees and shrubs at no cost. And whereas Trees for Trips has reviewed potential planting opportunities within the town and has indicated its willingness to provide plants and technical assistance subject to approval by the town of Woodstock. And whereas this effort builds upon previous stream buffer planting projects conducted in Woodstock, including a Trees for Trips planting completed in 2018 by the Woodstock Tree Committee. And whereas the free public workshop will be led by Andrew Faust of the Center for Bioregional Living, and will provide hands-on instruction in planting and strengthening stream buffers. And whereas any planting locations, project details, and related activities will be identified in coordination with and subject to the approval of the town of Woodstock. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Woodstock supports the stream buffer workshop to be held on October 3rd, 2026, and authorizes participation in the Trees for Trips program with all planting locations and activities subject to town review and approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are going to move into a couple of presentations, and our first presentation is from the Housing Committee.
Hi, I'm John Huber from the Housing Committee. With the documents circulated that we, the board haven't seen it. So that will make my presentation hard to follow, but I do have 3 copies. That I ran out of printer paper. So, the housing committee in a meeting a couple months ago was talking about the initiative to build housing on town-owned land. And we were discussing strategies for trying to get the town to think differently about the Mountain View parking, because that was the site that had the most enthusiasm from the engineers and from the people who think about where you should put housing, and it had this lightning rod of, it's in a parking lot and we need parking. And so the conversation was always about parking versus housing. And if you think about that lot, it's really actually a bit of an eyesore right now, but it's in a really lovely spot that could be integrated into the town. And so we were brainstorming without much luck about how to maybe move the conversation forward, when Lily, who has been participating in our meetings, said, why don't we have a design competition? And so the idea for this was born out of trying to change the conversation about the Mountain View parking lot away from parking versus housing to one that's about how could this space be an asset for housing and parking and for the community more generally. And so we started putting together a design competition document that allows us to express what we're trying to learn from the design competition. And that requires us to state, what we want, in this spot. And then learning how to execute it. How do you do one of these things? And so the motivation for the parking lot was about starting a conversation in the town that is different than the one that's had gone on so far. In addition, when we were doing this, Anula had the idea, well, why not do it in the other lot that's under consideration too, which is the Xena Highways lot by Xena Rep. That's a kind of different problem because there's not a parking crisis at that spot, and there's not a widespread opposition to doing something there. I think there's more of a consensus that it's a place you could put housing. But what are you supposed to put there? It's this community of single-family homes that are on medium-sized lots, and you couldn't just go build an apartment building there. And so, what would be a way that you could exploit that lot to provide some housing, and yet have it really fit with the character of the neighborhood and perhaps contribute a public good to the neighborhood. So that's the main motivation for doing this. So if you think about how you design a design competition, I think there's 3 important substantive things that you have to decide. One is what's called the design challenge, what you ask the contestants to think about. Another is the evaluation criteria. How are you going to judge the competition? Who has the best idea? And the third is the nature of what they call deliverables, the sketches, the narrative arguments about what they're going to do. So I thought I would talk a little bit about those for the Mountain View lot. I don't believe in how much time I have. Can I talk about it? It's about 10 minutes. I think we'll be great. So if you look at the document I circulated on page 5, you'll see the design challenge, and it really has 4 questions. The first is, how can buildings, parking, service areas, pedestrian routes, vehicle routes, and public space be arranged on the site in a way that's practical, attractive, and well connected to the community? The second is, how can you preserve 50 parking spots on the site and have a mix of different kinds of studios, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedrooms? The third is, how can you do this in a way that's sustainable? So from an environmental perspective, high performance design. And the final is, how can the design strengthen Woodstock's character, support local businesses, improve walkability, and create a public benefit beyond housing? And so those are the design challenges that our committee has come up with at this stage. And what would we get out of it? What are the deliverables? One is a concept statement. The contestants have to say what they would do to meet that design challenge, but we get drawings that could actually motivate people to think about that lot. So they would have to do a site plan. Where's the parking going to go? Where are the buildings going to go? How is the traffic going to circulate? Where are the residents going to park? And what else is there for people in the town? And then they'd have to do renderings and perspective views, which helps you kind of envision what do they think the buildings would look like, and if you then evaluate whether that fits the character of the town and adds to it. And there's some optional things that they can add as well that you would get, their sustainability strategy and their context and character statement. But most importantly, I think would be a public community benefit statement. And you could think about what could go there, it could be something like a small a small plaza. Improved pedestrian connections to the town. A landscaped open space or taking advantage of the wetlands that are there to have an area where people could sit, maybe some art. There's different ways you can try to integrate, the look of the cemetery with the rest of that area. It's actually quite lovely, and so to get people to brainstorm that. And the final is the evaluation criteria. If you have that document, it's on page 7. The ones that, it has to be good, those are some of the things, but what is the contribution to the public realm and the potential to create community benefit beyond housing and parking is one evaluation criteria. And another would be, how does it fit Woodstock's character, including its relationship with the nearby buildings, such as the colony, the historic cemetery, the wetlands, and the central business district. So all of this is laid out in more detail in the document that I guess you didn't get. That is what we're trying to do, is to use this document to think about how to motivate creative architecture students and professionals to brainstorm about the use of the law. The Xenia Highwoods, we don't have an analogous document, but I think the one that you have could be a template for that. We just have to change it to fit what you need at Xenia Highwoods. And there we're thinking about a maximum of 8 units. The contestants would have to think about where does the septic go, because there's no public services there. And most importantly are, one, the architectural fit with the existing community. You want something that looks like it belongs in this community of single family residential homes. And there's different ways they can do that, but we say we don't want to see any apartment buildings there. And then secondly, what could be a community benefit in this area? You could think about maybe a dog park or a playground or a walking path or something that would invite the community into this wooded space rather than having be on it. So the documents would be similar. You'd have drawings that would illustrate these things and narratives that would address the concerns. And so that's where we invite feedback is, are we well, first we have to do this in the highways, but are we capturing in the Mountain View parking lot what the community cares about? A last comment, which is how do you run this? We've done web research and we found a consultant who has run them at the Columbia School of Architecture, and they've helped us design this. So we think we're on track to do it in a way. It's really important that the main architecture associations and planning associations would respect. It has to be done right. They think Woodstock has cachet. It's a name that we have lots of contestants. People will want to participate. But a couple things about the process of making it work well. One, we have to get the word out. We've been told we need someone with creative, artistic abilities to do good posters. These get posted in the architecture schools, and this contest is going to be for students and for professionals. There's going to be 2 tracks, and so we need to generate that. We have to find a professional advisor. We're on track, I think, to do that. And we have to find a jury. You could imagine a jury from Mountain View, including local business people. One from Xenia Highwoods could include the neighbors, but you would also have professionals from different dimensions of how you make these things work. We've designed it so everything is going to be anonymous and judging, and so the students are going to be competing with the professionals and not contests, and the judges aren't going to know who they're judging. And the last thing I'd like to mention, this is something that I've nailed down since our last housing committee meeting, is when you have a contest like this, the intellectual property is the right of the contestants. And so the town doesn't get to take the thing and just steal it and use it. They would either have to take the ideas and put them in an RFP or negotiate with whoever is the winner, whoever ideas you have to buy the rights to those things. So this isn't buying us the rights to have a design. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Anyone on the board has questions?
It's anonymous. How do you know who won?
Well, the professional advisor will give everybody, he'll know, or she'll know. And they'll just have a key that goes from, maybe it'll be called, butterfly or something, and we'll know the name for butterfly, but only someone who's not judging will know that name.
And I think you said it was Lily's idea, I think it's a great idea.
Well, it also came out of, you didn't mention, I think there was a point where you kind of clicked on as far as you could go with Fisher, right? And so there was kind of talk about what happens to all the work that you've done on these 3 parcels. And not throwing it out the window and starting from scratch with another firm, so in terms of a cost analysis. I mean, you have the funding through the ARPA funds, right? That you have to spend by the end of the year. So in the long run, offering for prize money or whatever it costs to get the submissions in would be substantially less than hiring a different designer, is that correct?
Yes. No, I didn't go over the budget here and send that back to you, but to do both, we think it's getting around 15K. And there's more than that by far and left in the ARPA.
And when Catherine was able to terminate the contract with Fisher, she was able to get close to $10,000 back from them, so a lot of the cost of this would be covered by the refund. Okay.
So what would be the cost of this? Because you're getting people to volunteer to do this, or would you give them a stipend to participate?
So the professional advisor would be paid. That document doesn't have it actually, because it was on the memo on the front, not the actual, but it's about, I'm estimating to have 1 advisor for 2, maybe it would be 3,500. And then about 2,000 for advertising the contest, 1,000 each, and that's basically to print off these nice posters to get people's attention. And then the rest is prize money, and I estimated that the prizes for the senior would be about half of those for the town. It's just a much more self-contained, straightforward design problem than is the parking lot.
I want to say thank you, I think this is great, and one of the things before anything goes out, we need some input into legal as well, so the intellectual property. Is something that we would talk about. Quiz. So the quiz. So we'll talk about it. And so that's one thing, so we're gonna get these wonderful designs, then what can we use, what can't we use? What does that look like? So do you have a time frame for when this may be kicked off?
Well, we can't go until we know for sure that we have the money, and so once you tell us that the money can be used for this purpose, I think it wasn't totally clear last time we checked with you that it could be transferred in this way.
Yeah,
Then, I think I would immediately request help on the posters. And putting the professional advisor in place, and this could happen in the next.
that says yes,
Yes,
so double check the email, if you don't have it, let me know.
do we have it that says we have it? I thought we said you had to check on Monday or something.
That money can be used for,
Because we're not sure.
so
If,
what's
That's
usually,
usually- well, our funds were committed to certain vendors at the beginning of the process. And we had to tell the federal government how to get some funds. Now,
we've already told.
yeah, but I'm not, yeah, I know,
Right.
it's not sure that a contest like this. will-
Right, it depends on, are these going to be our architectural drawings, etc. So why don't we take it
Right,
offline,
yeah.
not.
And it has to be spent by the end of the year, that's the other
Exactly.
thing, so. That takes a lot of time pressure.
But once
Yes.
you know, I think it might be
Well,
as
we-
quick
we
as
just looked
3 weeks to get
together
it on and going, so.
Yeah, was, Catherine, were you involved in originally submitting what that money would be used for?
No,
Okay.
but we should talk about it.
Alright, we'll talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah, federal documentation.
I have more of a, it's more of a comment than a question, but I would hope that if a contest was permissible, that it would actually focus less on site specific and more on building materials and sustainability, efficiency, and all of those things, so that these designs theoretically could be placed anywhere. It's not like, well, this site needs an apartment building, this site needs cottages. So I'm much more curious to see about advanced cutting edge building materials. I think that Woodstock, wherever it is we decide to build, should really try to lead the way in sustainability and design new methods. And, because not everybody is on board with the idea of that. And to just focus on that, I think, is a little leading, in my opinion, just my opinion. But I would love to hear more about
sustainable building methods and some of the new methodology that's out there that we may not even be aware of. I think it'd be a great thing for Woodstock to eventually champion.
Yeah, but if I could, I agree I agree and wanna add on, but probably done great. I agree with all the sustainable building, I think that's all great. I think with Mountain View, the big issue is people do need parking and there is pushback. But what I like about your approach is if somebody can explain, how are we helping? Can somebody explain, hey, we're really giving you more, we're taking away some parking, but we're really giving you more. And if the town could find more parking someplace, and if we did do some of what's being done, but in the field and the youth center, if there was some rearrangement, some more parking could be there. So I think it's good to brainstorm, but the other thing I would wanna say is the housing committee and Catherine or anybody in the committee can correct me if I'm wrong. But my understanding is the housing committee looked at every town property and one by one, there was a reason why not to do it. And then we were down to 5 and then they were all explored and then we were down to 3 and then they were explored. And that's how we got these 2. So I hear what you're saying, and in a perfect world, it would be great to say, let's get sustainability, we could put it any number of places. But all the numbers of places, in my understanding, have already been well investigated. And I don't know, Catherine, whether you think that, can we plunk something down someplace, any place other than those 2? Because we saw the other ones, some just, it's too rocky and hilly and you can't really get your septic. And this one, there were different reasons why different properties were removed. And I don't know, Catherine, whether you agree that there are choices besides these 2.
Probably not for town owned parcels. But if none of these work out, the next step would be to look at things we could purchase. That's a whole nother conversation.
And it's also, I mean, one of the discussions that we had in the meetings about this. Were seeing what's feasible on the site and seeing how much parking would actually be taken away in reality, right? Because right now, when you talk about how feasible it is to build on the site, it is the most feasible, right? It's close to sewer, it's flat. There's some flooding on one side of it potentially, but for the most part, if you're going to build affordable housing as a municipality, the fewest roadblocks exist on that site. So from that perspective, it is a really great option. The downfall is how much parking you have to be taken away, but the Fisher studies stop short of actually giving a number to what that looks like. But you can't really go forward and say, okay, we're losing X number of spots here. Where can we provide those spots to town? How do you shift that need and spread it out in other areas? But we don't have that number because it's just been we lose spots. The number has never really been decided. It should be 50, it could be less. Someone could figure out something that works to maximize the space, take away less parking. And then you could look at something like the lower combo, which should be expanded underneath. But in terms of like knowing what you're actually losing and what you need to replace, this could actually help with that. Whereas, as opposed to just saying, well, we can't lose any parking, and a lot that's usually underutilized.
So I guess I'm a little confused then, so we're gonna have the design contest, but we can't use the drawings, but then this is supposed to help us kind of get an idea about parking, is that the idea?
No, I feel like. The problem is there's 2 kinds of contests you can have. And one kind of contest is a contest to get the contract. And so the winner actually becomes the person whose design is built out and used. The other is a kind of one that we're doing where it's a brainstorming idea. It's like to create a conversation or to create ideas that can be used in the design. There, this is from the consultant, the intellectual property stays with the contestant. And so if the town sees something they really like, they could talk to the contestant and they could try to purchase those rights, or they could make a contract with them if they're a professional. But they just take that drawing and say to an architect, build me this house that this person designed.
So the town would have to go out for bid and so just consider that, and we can talk more offline about that part of it. And also just understanding, I guess legally, so it sounds like you've looked at other contests, how much variation equals we can use it. So if we do go hire, not Fisher, but somebody else, so that we could get a better price, then what does that mean? Is the town gonna be at risk then legally, because it's too close to the contest drawing? So those are some things that we can talk
Yeah,
about.
I mean, my understanding is no matter what, after this, you have to do an RFP.
Okay.
And what the consultant told me was that typically these contests really inform the way you structure that RFP. And that gives you a lot of information, work in the parking lot, you know, you can do it, but you can't just take someone's ideas and say, build me this.
I have a quick question. So most colleges, and universities are starting now, right? So are you thinking this will go out in spring or September or in the?
I'm thinking in early September, yeah. I don't think once we get the go ahead that the delay will be very long. We have a good draft, we can fine tune that, finish the other one, get the posters, and we've got a list of all the architecture schools and the contact information. We've got the professional associations that we need to contact, we can get the word out to the professionals, and we even have a line on a consultant, and so I think that we can make it move quickly, but we don't want to invest time in this if there's no money
Clear
because
up the
of.
funding.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can work on that this week
Can I just say one last thing, is it's been really helpful to have a member of the town board on our in our committee meetings, and I'm really grateful to Lily for taking the time, I know that's hard, so thank
I have
you.
a quick question. Have you talked to other folks who've done this contest and had success with it?
I have. I have a connection at the Columbia School of Architecture who runs these, he's done things like the Lincoln Center atrium and big urban type things. He's helping me find someone who would be more appropriate for this, because his background is in sort of urban, I mean, rural, smaller, rural settings.
Their feeling is like somehow this could be put together and sent off.
But this person has, the document I circulated has had that person's feedback already, and he's very enthusiastic about. He said, this is all you need, you know, that meets the professional standards. But he also thinks that Woodstock has cachet, he's excited about it, wants to be involved in it. He said people don't want to do this for this Woodstock, and so there was, you know, that element to the response. Does that
And basically,
response?
yeah, and basically the point is like, it feels like things are at an impasse because of the parking issue and you're just trying to generate some fresh ideas.
Yeah, well, I think the conversation is stuck right now for the reasons that you guys have said. We don't really know what's gonna be there. And
Right.
so if we have a variety of creative people thinking about what could be there, we can go to step two, which is, do we want something like one of those or no? It's just not really what we wanna be. And so we can't really have that second decision in our perspective without more information. I think this is the way of getting a lot of it.
And it does sound like it will help decision making.
Yeah.
We see what the pictures look like, it, I mean, it almost makes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, our next presentation is from the Chase on Highway Superintendent.
Oh.
For those who don't know me, Cody Case, acting highway superintendent, thank you so much. As I started to talk about briefly before, and I want to touch on now, with the, you know, the expenditures that are coming up with vehicles. And something that I think is, I believe is very important into the long term, future for the highway department. It's the equipment and our fleet management program that we have. So as a new highway superintendent, I've been looking forward more into the future, not this. You know, the urgency of buying something just as it's dying, so into the future, 10 to 20 years. Of our equipment, which is, you know, our machinery as well as our trucks, as our plow trucks, as our. Sanders and everything that goes into making my highway department so good. Right now, we're essentially nursing some of our equipment season to season. Some of our equipment is approaching 40 years old, so I brought up today. And I really commend my guys, and they've done a great job of keeping that stuff going. But the reliability and the downtime and just the ultimate repairs, you know, at some point there becomes a time where we pick concerns. Been looking into a fleet management replacement program. It's put on by Cornell University's local roads program. You can find it on any on their main website through LTAP. It provides municipalities a way to plan for exactly what I'm saying, for equipment replacement. And I'm gonna read a little bit of this because it's fairly simple, but there is a formula here. I'll leave that, go over that, that is the website to go with it. Basically it takes into account the category of equipment, so it can be done for. Multiples, you could do it for just your pickup trucks, you could do it for your dump trucks. And you know, apply it into whichever one you think is necessary for the town. It looks at their useful life, what it costs to replace them. And you know, when will you get the most money in return out of them as well? Instead of keeping things to the very end when they're now. You're not getting anything back in return, and there is a bell curve that they've got figured out for the longevity of these things. They also account for things like inflation, interest, and it's not just as simple as. How long are you gonna have it, what does it cost, and you divide that, there's a good bit more that goes into it. I like this approach, I think it's much more forward thinking rather than, oh, this is broke, we need $100,000. Where is it, you know, I think coming up with this number that you put into your reserves every year to then replace this equipment at the end of its usable life makes much more sense. And I'm not here right now asking for a certain dollar amount. I'm just telling the board that I'd love to start this conversation. I'd love to draw up the numbers, see what we think the feasibility is for. Like I said, using it for just pickup trucks, using it for the backup, using it for the grader, and seeing how it moves forward from there. Possibly integrating it into the whole town's fleet, because it is something that other municipalities are using, including DOT and county. I believe it just gives us a great way to be productive and responsible with. Every one of your tax dollars that's going into making the highway department great, and I wanna be, you know, like I said, forward thinking on that. So, any questions?
I got one.
Yeah,
So if you're looking for something in 2027,
right,
my recommendation is make sure the board knows in the next 30 days. Because the budget time schedules, the mandated budget schedules are gonna be here before we know it. So my recommendation is if you need something in 2027. Let us know in the next 30 days, I think, to be on the safe side.
right, and I think that's the always, you know. Everybody's fear of putting something like this into place is like, well, we're behind, so I need this, this and this. But if I can come to you guys and say, look, if we really replace these two trucks right now, we're starting with. And from there, maybe 4 years down the road, we'll replace one of them. And then every year after that, you replace one of them and you go, wow, that truck still looks good. Well, great, we've got $25,000 for it. Now this truck costs less, so I agree with you, putting together a plan sooner than later, especially. We got the email today, I think August 31st, it has to be in by rate for requests or.
I don't know.
Something like that. Anyway, yes.
I think it's great that you're looking ahead and trying to predict and make a plan like you said, so it's not last minute.
And I've been there not a long time, but long enough, and I've seen the. You know, trying to keep things together, and I've watched some nickel and dime projects get just carried away, and I'm just trying to move forward, because we know, especially with the equipment we have, you know, your 30-year-old refrigerator is probably still working, the 2-year-old refrigerator they have is gonna die next week. So things are not made the way they were used to, we're not getting the longevity out of everything.
And it's gonna apply like the maintenance department too.
It's a very, yeah, and I'd love to implement it for us and kind of see what the numbers are, and then possibly hand this off to other departments to run with.
I also want to say that Tony does a great job, you know, he keeps our entire fleet going for the entire town. I call him 7 o'clock in the morning, he's the one who answers the phone, you know, in the morning, you know. He fixes our police cars, you know, right away, you know, he does a great job.
Thank you.
You know, so you have got this maintenance program, you know, but you know, he keeps our fleet really going. I think that's lovely.
Yeah, wouldn't be here without them, honestly.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, we don't have publicly heard on the agenda. This one, okay, but before we do, you may see a different face at the table. So, this is Rebecca Brooks, our acting town clerk, and her first town board meeting.
Here,
All right, as Iris is doing, putting her name on there, I'm gonna say that the public be heard is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board. You've got 3 minutes, please be respectful of everybody's time, and the board will not respond, in kind, this is our chance to sit here and listen to you and what's top of your mind.
Hi. Now, a couple of months ago, I stood up here and was talking about that last results from the water. Right, and that's from June 25th. And, you know, of course, we still have the PFAS in the water. And it was Pump House 1 will do, and at that time, I had suggested. And maybe something happened when I don't know, I haven't been to a couple of meetings, but I suggested calling Larry and seeing about taking one of the wells offline and see if that works. And I think we could survive without that well, but I don't know that. Did you talk to Larry? I don't know. So anyway, that's, my mind is still open because haven't heard any update. And I haven't heard anything about doing anything about the town water. You know, there's a whole thing about the Shady Dome, and that could be an entirely different matter. But I don't hear anything about doing something about the town water and the contamination. So anyway, I'd like to hear some sort of update on that. Just a comment, that's that next subject. Just a comment on what you said about that driveway and the accessible parking in front, the way I remember the story. The owner agreed to that because he has another driveway and the other side of the house, that's where he usually parks. So, you know, I guess they thought it was okay, you know. Wasn't just the town, just willy-nilly did something without, you know, blocking the person permanently. So I just wanted to put a little story to that. And I still have time. Third subject. The presentation about the Mountain View lot, you know, parking and this competition, and so, you know, they want to have a competition where they can figure out about keeping the parking or putting it somewhere else or whatever. But it's not just about those parking spots, it's keeping those and adding more for the residents. And then you've got even more traffic at that corner. You know, it's not just about parking spaces, but that everyday traffic, it's hard enough making a left from Rock City Road, and now you're gonna be adding even more, so just put my 2 cents into that one. Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Here I am. I'm gonna try to go as fast as I can, so thank you for bear with if any stuff, but I got a lot more to say. So I appreciate all the work the housing committee does, we've been on there for 5 years. I actually went through the whole treasury document from the state and the federal treasury department of what we can use or couldn't use. I was the one on the committee who went through that, so I can find that for you. I think this is all premature. I think it's a good idea. I think it's something that you could be sort of doing on the side, but to put money towards it right now, I don't think is a great idea. The reason I think that this is because we're putting the cart before the horse. And the elephant in the room is that we put up proposed zoning in 2023. And the fact that we're looking at some kind of parcels and people do need, I totally 100% agree. They need to have a vision to see exactly what is going to be put there to say yes or no to, and everybody's just against it. Is that part of the zoning was based on research of all the various multi-pronged solutions. One really major one that has to do with what we're talking about here is middle housing. Middle housing, we don't have in the current zoning that's from 80s. We don't have the middle housing that passes on the affordability to people that you can look at and say, hey, can we do this? You'd have to still go through a whole zoning thing in order to get that. It's such a long story. I don't even have time to tell you. So what I suggest is that, because even with an RFP, that's when they come up with their ideas of what they want to build in that area. So my concrete suggestions are, number one, which I should have been done years ago,
But number one is to create a parking task force ASAP. You want people to calm down about parking, put some people on it, start figuring out, doing research and come up with solutions about what to do. Number two, focus on the zoning of middle housing, take the RFP funds. And put it towards what's left to do, that is true statement, has to be spent by the end of the year, so we only have a couple of months. Take the money from that, I know that there's a lot of complications and what's been going on, I've heard about. But take that money and put it towards educating the community about middle housing. And that part of the zoning that has been sitting on a shelf. That we had a person, when he was talking about, he was correct, his friend that knows how to do for an urban area. Nan Stolzenberg, who is, we're already working with, we have been working with, she is certified. Wild biologist, undergrad and master's degree in science. And knows what she's talking about. And it was a whole team of people, including the town historian, I mean, I just don't, on and on and on, you guys know about this. To educate and take the money to educate the consultant, the whole community. About what middle housing is, so that when you go to do an RFQ or have architects do this great idea, they know what they can actually put in there. Legally, right now, it's not legal.
Thank you,
And then you can do some kind of design competition.
thank you. Any others?
No.
Okay, all right, motion to adjourn the meeting,
Second.
all in favor?
I
Any opposed?
I don't know.